What's good, YouTube? In today's video, we're getting into my new top 5 meta loadouts you guys need to be running. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like for the algorithm, subscribe with notifications turned on, and let's get into it. All right, so for our first gun here today, we're gonna be jumping into the BAL-27. This is a really good longer range assault rifle, especially since the STG got nerfed and people are using the D tier quite a bit, which we'll go over here within this top 5. A lot of people are going to be using the BAL, or should be using the BAL if you are not already. So let's hop in here to the build. First thing in the muzzle category, we're going to go throw on the Quartermaster suppressor here as always. This is going to be a reoccurring theme in this top 5. We are sticking with that Quartermaster. They did not buff it, they did not nerf it. It was perfect the way it was, and I'm just so happy that they did not mess with this attachment because it is great and allows us to use a suppressor on pretty much all of our builds with having relatively low downsides, only like a little bit of ADS speed and sprint to fire speed, which is perfectly fine. Even on SMGs, it is better than losing out on bullet velocity like we would with like the Zeman 35 or something like that, or even just being totally unsuppressed and having to use a compensator. This does more than enough, so we're going to be using the Quartermaster. After that, in the barrel section, we're gonna go in here and we're gonna throw on the Crown H3 barrel. This is the longest barrel in here, pushing you out, the farthest possible bullet velocity and range. It does also help with your overall, ability to move, which is pretty nice. So you can be a pretty aggressive AR. You can see it does push you out a nice 20, and 11%. Your effective damage range and your bullet velocity is not going to be the absolute fastest, but it is still going to be really easy to be able to use. This gun is very little recoil, and this is going to be a nice aggressive AR build that you guys can use on Rebirth Island, even transfer it over to big map. It's not going to be great for super long distances, but this is going to be a good aggressive longer range AR. After that, we're gonna go down here to the magazine section. We're gonna go throw on the 60 round mag. For any guys that are seeing the variant that's kind of going over there behind my face cam, this is one of the battle pass variants. Unfortunately, when you take the conversion kit off of it, the Jack Death March, it actually just totally loses all of its look. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but we have this 60 round mag here on this gun. This is going to be, of course, the way to go. I'm a 60 round mag kind of guy, so I'd recommend for you guys to go for that 60, but 60 is indeed the way to go, even if I was not that kind of guy. So go for this. 30 is just not acceptable. It doesn't matter if you're playing solos, I don't care. Go for the 60. After that, we're gonna go into the optic section. We're gonna go throw on the Jack Glassless. This is gonna be my optic of choice. I don't really believe the BAL to be one of those guns where you throw on a 2.5 times scope like the Choreo Eagle Eye. I believe it to be mainly just a Jack Glassless aggressive, red dot style AR. I don't think there's a ton of guns in the game where I'd recommend to go for that 2.5x, but I will show you guys some of those here within this video. So the Jack Glassless is going to be the way to go here on this gun. After that, in the stock section, for our last attachment, we're gonna go throw on the Ardent Tac stock, which is gonna be perfect for stabilizing this gun out. Gives you that gun kick control, firing, aiming stability, and of course recoil control. All things we need when we're trying to make this thing truly stable at longer ranges. So this is going to be my full BAL-27 long range build. Next up, let's hop in here to a great thing you guys can actually pair with that BAL-27, aka the FJX Horus. This is pretty much like a number 2 SMG in the game, number 2 to number 3, depending on how you look at it. We have like your static, we have like your Super and your FJX. They kind of flip-flop back and forth in between places, and you can build this out a variety of ways to make it either better or worse for you, mobility wise or recoil. So let's just get into the best all-around build here for this thing to make it the most effective it can be. So muzzle category, of course, we're gonna go throw on the Quartermaster suppressor. Keep in mind, if you guys are not going to be running the Quartermaster, you have to throw on a barrel first before you go for any of these other attachments. They will stay locked otherwise, so you have to go ahead and throw on a barrel unless you're using the Quartermaster, which is a nice exception. After that, in the barrel section, we're going to extend out this range here a little bit by throwing on that Sin 9 long barrel. This is a really solid barrel. It of course extends out to range. This thing has a pretty ridiculous fire rate of almost 1,000 rounds per minute. So even though its effective damage range is only 9.9 meters with this barrel on there, you will be getting rounds out significantly faster than a lot of other people out there, just because your rate of fire is probably in excess of 150 to 200 rounds per minute faster than a lot of the other SMGs. So you have to take that into consideration. You are pretty much the fastest firing one in the meta, so you will get a lot more shots on target, which makes this gun more forgiving, especially in close quarter situations. It's not like it's an Uzi or something which has a much slower fire rate, and that is less forgiving when you start missing some shots. So this is going to be the way to go for that. After that, we're going to go down to the ammunition side of things. We're going to go throw on the 9mm high grain rounds. This is kind of one of those attachments where you can switch this out for something else if you really want to. You can not throw this on, throw like an optic, throw on a different underbarrel or an underbarrel if you want to. It kind of depends on the route you want to go, but if you don't mind losing out on this effective damage range, minimum, a maximum, and your bullet velocity boost, then that's something that you guys should be looking into, considering the iron sights, in my opinion, aren't the absolute greatest. This is just the most effective way to run this gun, in my opinion. So you can go for that. After that, we're gonna go down to the magazine section, and this is one of the few guns in the game where you guys can actually throw on the largest magazine. So you have obviously the 48 and the 60 round drum. So between the 48 and the 60, there's no penalties for running the 60 versus the 48. So meaning there's no movement penalties, there's no ADS penalty, there's no, you know, reload. You guys can look at the detailed statistics when you press, you know, the left trigger on your controller or whatever you're using as your input device, but it's not going to get you any slower. So it's kind of foolish to not run this 60 round drum as opposed to 48 round mag. It always kind of boggles my mind if I see an FJX horse build on the ground where I see someone running a 48 round mag instead of a 60 round. It doesn't make sense. I'm like, why would you not just go for the extra 12 rounds? There's no penalty, there's no cost to it, there's no extra, I should say. So go for that here on this build. Last thing, we're gonna go into the stock section to make this thing here a little bit faster without screwing up our recoil, because this gun is very prone to having a lot of recoil. We're gonna go throw on the Ripper light stock, which is gonna give us that increase in hip fire and tac stand spread, in walking speed, sprint to fire speed, and of course movement speed. All great things here that you guys can definitely enjoy here on this build. Like I said, if you guys don't want to go ahead and run the high grain rounds, you can take that off, throw on an underbarrel of your choice. Maybe you can throw on the Jack Slash. That'd be a nice option there as well. I know people sometimes run the Kimura Cephric vertical grip, or you guys can even, you know, go into the optics section and throw on maybe a Jack Glassless or something like that, since the iron sights aren't always the greatest. So options, choices, things for you to be able to run, but this is a great build right here. Next up, we're gonna be getting into a build here with the D tier 30, and we're starting out at this screen right here because there's the base D tier 30, and then of course we have the Dead Haunting one, which is really cool, but then we also have the Black Cell version, which in my opinion gives you significantly less smoke when you're firing. Everyone knows that those MW2 ones are very, very famous for having, you know, a lot of smoke when you go to fire the gun. So if I was you guys and you own the Black Cell Battle Pass, if you want significantly less firing smoke in your peripheral, in your, you know, your in line of sight, I recommend to go ahead and run this specific variant, and that'll totally take out like 90% of that. So just a little hint, tip, and trick that you guys should be on the lookout for if you happen to have the Black Cell Battle Pass. Otherwise, it's still totally fine. You just have a little bit more smoke. It just has to do with this fact that this thing has tracers, and of course the other ones do not. First thing, muzzle category, we're gonna go throw on the Quartermaster Suppressor. And by the way, this is just an old weekly challenge event camo. You cannot get this anymore. This has been long gone since past, from like season 3 or something else like that. It's been a little bit ago. So this is going to be our first attachment. After that, in the barrel section, we're gonna go throw on the Extend 10 long barrel. This is gonna bring out your bullet velocity and range, of course, your minimum, your effective damage range, all great things here. And it does, weirdly enough, help your movement speed and your ADS movement speed. So pretty cool like that. This pushes you out to a nice 25.9 meters of effective damage range, and your bullet velocity to 1,080 meters per second. Your damage drop off is going to be pretty ridiculous here on this gun in terms of being really good. That's why it's pretty much like the #1 long range meta gun. The only downside to this, in my opinion, is the fact that the fire rate is slow. So if you got really bad accuracy, you might start not liking this gun, just because it's not going to be nearly as forgiving as something that's got a 700 or 800 round per minute fire rate. Just keep that in mind. The bow will be better if you're missing more of those shots. So the Extend, though, is going to be the way to go. After that, we're going to go down here to the magazine section, and of course throw on the 40 round mag. This is a fully automatic gun. Even though it doesn't have the fastest fire rate, you still need the biggest magazine on it, and of course it is your long range option, so it just makes sense for you guys to go ahead and do that. So go for the 40, don't really question it. Just no matter how you're building this thing, doesn't matter Black Cell pass variant or not, go for the 40. After that optic section, we're gonna go throw on the Jack Glassless. If you guys want to, this is going to be a very stable gun, so you can go down here and throw on a bit of a different optic. You're gonna have to go down just a little bit. I know there's like 1.5 billion optics in this game, and people only use basically like 2 to 3 of them if they're actually going to be doing something good. Actually, it's going to be right here, the Choreo Eagle Eye. So the Choreo is going to be what you want to run if you're not going to be running that Jack Glassless. Very stable gun, and I would actually recommend it because it's good for long range, low recoil, low visual recoil, so any and all the above. But for me personally, I'm an aggressive player. I just prefer to go for the Jack Glassless, and I pretty much play exclusively Rebirth, Vondel, so on and so forth. So I'd rather just go for the Jack Glassless. Lastly, in the stock section, we're gonna go in here and stabilize this thing out. That's gonna be with the Rifleman 200 stock. This is gonna be absolutely perfect. And for you guys that are thinking about this build looks familiar, that's because it's the exact build you get with the Black Cell Battle Pass or any of the Battle Pass variants here on this gun. you actually don't have to change a single thing. But if you're building it from scratch, this is still technically the best way to build it. So the rifleman is the way to go. Stabilize it out perfectly. You're gonna have very, very little recoil. You'll be able to beam people at farther distances. It's gonna be great. Next up, let's get you guys a build here for pretty much the #1 meta SMG in the game, aka the Static HV. This thing, for whatever reason, just was left perfectly untouched, and it was fantastic. So you guys don't have to worry about really changing up your build unless it was like a really terrible build. But let's hop into the best build here for it on this thing. So muzzle category, of course, quartermaster suppressor. Not gonna explain this one here again. You guys know what it does. Still should be running it on this gun. Barrel section, couple options in here. I've seen some pretty bad ground loot builds in some of the lobbies I've been in. I don't know what people are trying to do. You should just be running the Auger 840 light barrel. That is the most effective way to run this gun, truthfully. There's no reason for you guys not to run this. You lose out a little bit on your recoil control, which is not that big of a deal considering we will stabilize it out and it's still perfectly fine anyways. So you should just run the Auger 840 because this is not like it's like a sniper support, something like that. It is truly a close range SMG. Now down to the underbarrel section, we're gonna go through on the Jack Slash, but there is a couple of different options. The Jack Slash is what the World Series of Warzone competitors were using when they won World Series of Warzone. So it is, by that metric, the best sort of the build to be able to run on this thing with the Jack Slash and the exact build I'm showing you guys. But if you want to switch it up, you definitely can to the XRK Edge, the DR6, or what's also very popular is the paracord grip here on this gun. I'd venture to say the Jack Slash and the paracord are the two primary options. But if you guys don't want to run either of those, you can kind of venture and just switch it up, kind of do whatever works best for you. But for me personally right now, I've been sticking with that Jack Slash. It has been feeling absolutely elite when I'm on the battlefield, or when I'm dropping into the rebirth island trying to wipe out them squads. Now we're gonna go to the optic section, and this is none of those cases where you can run the Jack glassless. Pretty standard universal optic, but for me personally, I don't like running the Jack as much on this thing. I'd prefer to go ahead and run a different sort of red dot sight, and my preference is going to be the Nahv model 2023. This is like what I personally prefer to run. I think it's just a great optic and I find great success with it. It literally does come down to what is your preference, and this is going to be mine. Not going to make or break your build unless you use an optic that's really bad, and of course it'll break your build, but the Nahv model is what it is. Lastly, in the stock section, we go through on the Strahfe 34 light stock. So this right here is going to be the most elite stock you can use. I don't really believe you should go for the no stock. This causes way too many recoil control penalties. It's nice to be able to have the extra movement, but it doesn't really make sense, frankly. So I just go for the Strahfe 34 and pretty much call it a day at that. This is going to be like your $1 million World Series of Warzone tournament build. And for our final gun here today in our top 5, we're getting into the Holger 556. So this assault rifle right here is phenomenal. It is pretty much the #1 assault rifle you guys can use. That's truly an assault rifle, not like a battle rifle like the D tier 30. So if you guys want to use an AR, that's going to be great. Besides like the Bal 27, this is going to be it right here. There's a couple ways you can run it. First thing, muzzle. Of course, we're throwing on the quartermaster. I ain't got to explain this one here. I've already explained it too many times already, but the quartermaster is what we're doing. Barrel section, we're going to go for the largest and longest barrel in here, which is the Cryos 6 match barrel. An increase in bullet flossing range, recoil control, and gun kick control does wonders for this thing, making it significantly more effective. And you'll notice your effective damage range is 61 meters, which is pretty ridiculous. This thing has pretty much one of the most effective longer distance damages besides like the Tctekk Eradicator. It has a standard, simple fire rate. It doesn't speed up or slow down. It is consistent, and that effective damage range is pretty wicked. The only downside is that the bullet velocity is not nearly as fast as some of the other guns where you can make it, especially with the Tctekk Eradicator or the SVA in burst mode. So we have to kind of adjust for that. So we're gonna go down in here now to the ammunition side of things, and this is gonna be one of those attachments where you can either do it or not, and I'll show you guys how to swap it out. Basically the 5.56 high grain rounds, this boosts you out. I mean, listen, your effective damage range was not something we're too concerned with, but the bullet velocity getting out to 900 meters per second makes a huge difference in this thing feeling a lot more hit scan because everything is a projectile, and of course you're trying to lead your shots when you're trying to beam somebody out the sky. It does make a large difference, so just kind of keep that in mind. I mean, if you don't have to use this, but you won't be able to beam people out the sky as good or from super long distances just because you have to lead your shots more. So this makes it easier to use in that regard. Now magazine section, the downside of this thing, kind of much like we have the D tier right now, is that it only has a 40 round mag. So that kind of is what it is. I'd prefer there to be a 45, 50, or 60. I think the gun would definitely benefit from that. And it's also only got just underneath the 600 round permanent fire rate. So faster than the D tier with great range, and of course now a great bullet velocity, which is almost up there with that. So I would say 40 is definitely the way to go, but I mean, I wish there would be something a little bit better. 45, 50, 60, like I said, I think that should be in the game. Lastly, we're gonna go to the stock section because we're gonna be utilizing the iron sights, which I'll show you guys here in 1 second, and how not to use them if you don't want to. Couple ways around it. But we have the RB Adel Assault stock, which is gonna be our go-to stock of choice. This will stabilize your gun out perfectly fine. You don't need to have any underbarrel, nothing else like that. This will be the way to go. This is the absolute move right here. And I've been using this for a minute now, ever like even previous to this update. And this is still the way to go. So this can be my full build right here. But if you guys don't want to do that, take out the assault stock. You can keep the high grains. Go into your throw on a Jack Glassless, which is going to be great. That's going to be another variation of a build for you guys. Have a little bit more recoil. So if you want to, you can take that off. Go to the stock section, throw on the RB Adel, kind of mix and match those attachments, and you can't go wrong with this specific Holger setup. So that being said, that's been my top 5. You guys enjoyed this video, give it a like for the algorithm, subscribe, notifications turned on, check out this other video on screen, and I'll see you all next time.